This episode contains specific and graphic information about a crime. Please be advised.
We cannot get James back. We cannot get him back. But since we cannot have that, the next best thing are your kids and making sure that they're here, making sure that they are aware of the people who are targeting them. We still have your back 100%.
Welcome to True Crime Prevention, the podcast that melds true crime with real solutions. Let's expose how all crime starts the same way, with a chance. Today, we're going to take that chance away. I'm Paul DelPonte, and I work with McGruff the Crime Dog. Thank you for joining us today. We're really fortunate to have two parents who are really heroes in many ways. They overcame the ultimate tragedy any parent could face, the loss of their son. And Tamia and Timothy join us, parents of James Woods. And for those who are listening, we're going to get into some scary details around things like sextortion, a term that's thrown around a lot, but a lot of people don't know fully what it means and how serious it is. Suicide, and, like I said, some of the scariest things, every parent's worst nightmare. So if any of that makes you feel uncomfortable, you might want to pass on this episode. But we hope you join us, because the real heart of the story is the hope that these two wonderful people bring. Thank you, Tamia and Timothy, for joining us. Great to have you with us. James sounds like he was just a wonderful child, an athlete. Tell us a little bit about him, the person.
Well, I could tell you, for the most part, he was happy pretty much all the time. He's laughing. He's smiling. He's cracking jokes, good ones and bad ones. He was a person who liked video games. He was a person who liked to hang out with his friends. They talked on the phone. They talked over the internet when they're playing Xbox Live. They hung out in person, hanging out and laughing and joking and dancing, singing. They went to basketball games, football games, volleyball matches, the movies. I mean, he was a person who did a lot of different things. And his friends loved him for it because he was a bright light. He always was just smiling and cheering people up.
Yeah. The boys, him and his friends, they would always hang out together and go to different places to eat. And I would always make fun of them, because I would tell them, you three are the youngest people who ever liked to frequent Bob Evans.
I was about to ask, what were his favorite foods?
They loved to go to Bob Evans, and it just was funny. But he loved, his favorite food, of course, was my spaghetti. Yeah. And we used to always have like Taco Tuesday, the typical. And it was very simple young man, but wonderful and mighty. And we just didn't quite know, I guess, how mighty he truly was, unfortunately, until he passed. But the amount of lives that he touched while he was here in the physical was just truly amazing in every way. He was a person who encouraged others. We always say our neighbors are in their early 80s, and he would always cut their grass, and the wife had to force him to take money. He just was,
wow.
Yeah, he was very humble, and he just was a great person as a whole, and proud. We're just proud to be his parents.
Did you have any clues that anything was wrong? How did things start unfolding?
So I must say that a number of things. One thing that Tim and I want to make sure that we put out there, especially dealing with suicide, is that dealing with our youth is quite different than if you were to take QPR training. For those that don't know, is question, persuade, refer, that we are actually certified in. There's a lot of questions. There's a lot of things that you can see as far as signs. But when it comes to our youth, there is very little. And then when you add sextortion on there, we didn't have any sign. When James passed away, We knew nothing about it. So there weren't any signs for us to really recognize. Now looking back, I don't even think that we still would have recognized the signs. And that's why, and we'll get into it, but that's why we are big on communication. We are big on education, understanding what sextortion is, talking directly to the students about sextortion while educating our parents as well. So that they are willing to speak up and actually say something.
And I think that gets to the real heart of it. It's obviously an uncomfortable topic. It's as parents, as teachers, role models, coaches, whatever you want to think, a child's too young. But I think in terms of preventive education, you have to go younger because you've got to educate before the risk happens.
Yes.
And I think that really gets to it. So he was 17 in high school, and so this caught you out of left field. It sounds like, here's this kid one night going to Bob Evans with his friends, and then the ultimate tragedy. How did that, at the moment, I can't even begin to imagine the extreme grief, the shock, and all of that. What sort of led you to uncovering the causes of the, and getting at the sextortion? How did that all unfold?
So I was the one who found our son. And after I had, did my crying and whatever, a period of time went by, I'd called 911. The police came, they did their investigation, and when they were wrapping up everything, they took his cell phone with them. We gave them the passcode so that they could get into it easily. And they took the cell phone, and that whole night, all they did was just go through the phone, find everything they could, collect all their information for their investigation. And then that next morning, they gave it to us and told us everything that they had found. So that was how we found out what exactly was going on to make it to where he was no longer here.
Were they able to uncover the identity of the culprit?
We aren't privy to all information. Homeland Security has our case.
Okay.
And they did track everything to the Ivory Coast, which is a country in Western Africa.
Okay.
They never said they know specifically who the individual was, but they did contact that country and ask for permission to extradite someone.
Okay. So they are definitely on the trail.
Yeah.
And was there any sense from the investigators, is this part of some organized system? I assume because there's sextortion involved, and you might want to explain a little bit for our listeners what that means, that they, part of this was to get money.
Right. So take it back to what sextortion is, for the listeners. So there's two different types of sextortion. You have traditional sextortion and you have financial sextortion. Traditional sextortion is something that we were familiar with all these years. It just didn't have quite a name. They predominantly the targets of the traditional sextortion are your young females, anywhere between 13 to 17 years of age. It takes a longer period of time. Any signs that you may see when it comes to traditional sextortion would be harming of themselves. They may cut their hair, actually isolate themselves, don't want to talk, a little depressed. You may see a lot of that. And the main goal of traditional sextortion is for self-gratification, to get more pictures, videos, or get them to do the things that they would like to do in order to satisfy themselves or to sell it on the dark web. Financial sextortion, the main target is young men. The ages have went even lower lately. It's between the ages of 10 to 17 years of age. Their main goal is financial. However, they will do whatever they can to put you in a humiliated state in order to get what they want. And hence, that's why they get you to provide compromising position or picture videos and then force you to give them money. It happens very rapidly. A lot of times a conversation can go sexual within 8 minutes of talking to a young man. And also a lot of times where you see the crime from the time that they're contacted to the time that they actually die is within the average time is 6 to 8 hours. And a lot of times our sextortion, financial sextortion victims, it ends in suicide.
Mm. Well, sorry you had to experience that, but thank you for sharing, especially the timeline of how quickly it can happen and the shame and grief built up into the teen or the young person who was the victim. And one of the things that we make very clear, and, you know, working for McGruff the crime dog, if anybody starts blaming the victim, they're going to have to deal with him because we don't tolerate that.
Right. Yeah.
And I think a lot of people don't understand that there's still internal guilt. And that builds up. And with the timeline you just described, there's not enough time for parents, teachers, and other loved ones to see it.
Right. And Paul, thank you for bringing that out, because we want to also make everyone aware that, yes, we always use our son as an example. We don't mind being vulnerable. We don't mind putting our information out there so that you can learn from us. And in what we think may have happened inside of James' head, did he do the best thing? Did he make the best decision? No, he didn't. But he also had 4 additional master manipulators who were attacking him at one time. James received 200 messages in 19 and a half hours. So were people like you and I, when we were growing up and we didn't have the internet, we were able to look at the decision that we made and actually think about how we could overcome that decision. Was it the right decision? Was it the wrong decision? James made a decision and he didn't get that chance. He was not allowed that chance. And he received 200 messages within a short period of time to make him feel the guilt on top of maybe not making that best decision. Mm-hmm. So there's 2 different types of people. Somebody who can make a decision, be able to think about it and correct that decision. James didn't have the privilege to go through that.
So how did the perpetrators come to find him? Did they, I assume they sort of are out there scanning? Are they on social media platforms? Or are they just looking for people to chat with? Did you get any, did the clues point you in any direction to sort of?
He was contacted through Instagram.
Okay.
And what had happened was he was friends with other people, and the person who was the criminal, the bad actor, they were just scanning through the list of friends, and that's how they came across James. So after they got a hold of him, they took a screenshot of all his friends also, and were planning on doing the same thing again and again and again. So that being public makes it, easier for these people who log on every day to find people to attack.
Mm-hmm.
Did Instagram ever reach out to you and try to offer help?
No. So, I guess fortunately, I guess I could use that word. The internet crimes against children were able to find out exactly what happened. Typically, you go through a subpoena and get a page taken down, and all the pages that are like it or affiliated with it, they were able to get that taken out without the subpoena because they knew they were 100% in the wrong.
Right.
But as far as any kind of apology, any kind of how can we help, what can we do to make it right, collaborating with us to figure out how we can make their platform better, they have never reached out.
Well, that's unfortunate. And what I'll say to other parents who are out there listening, I think we need to keep raising our voices and let Meta and the other companies know, we're not blaming you. You're not the criminal, but you are making billions of dollars on these platforms. And just like an automaker wouldn't put a car on the road that they know wasn't safe, there's an obligation, I think, from these companies to make a safer product.
I 100% agree with you. I I don't. They did not force these murderers, because
Right.
that's what they call them. I call them. They are murderers. They did not force
Absolutely.
them to do that. However, they didn't step in. There were things that my son had said. He did say that he was going to kill himself. He did say, "Why are you doing this to me?" He said all of the words that you can say to actually get your page frozen, suspended on any other or on their platform either,
Right.
even. But they never did. 19 and a half hours, it takes a long it seems so short, but it's a long time in internet time.
Right.
And yet nothing ever happened. And that right there, especially when they listen to us, if I talk about a couch today, it's going to be a couch tomorrow on my timeline. I guarantee you.
Exactly. I was about to say that
Mhm.
somehow they can channel ads in your direction in a fraction of that 19 hours. Right. You look for a couch, you look for a new coffee maker or a new blender, you start getting pop-up ads on your feed almost instantly. I recently, I travel a lot for work and I go to speak at a conference, and I'm getting, by the time I land, they know what city I'm in, and I'm getting ads for restaurants in that city and that kind of thing.
Yes.
So the information does transfer quickly, very quickly. We all see it in our lives, but when you need it most, they sort of shrug their shoulders and say, "Oh, that's just the way it is." And I think as citizens, it's important that we keep raising our voices to say, "No, no, that's not the way it is. Just don't accept that." And we'll eventually get to change.
Yeah, Paul, I'm not afraid to speak up and say something, hence why we're
That's
here.
why you're here.
But I'm going to give you an example of what I mean. And a lot of times when they put things in place, and you see that now, I think sometimes it's bells and whistles. And I'll give you an example of what I mean. Google allows you to put parental controls on your child's phone. And as parents, we think that we're doing our job. We put parental controls on there. But no one knows that as soon as your child turns 13, Google will actually message your child directly and tell them, "Congratulations on turning 13. You no longer need parental consent for anything you do on your phone. Click here to opt out."
Yeah,
That
that's
is insane to me. So yeah, you may say, "Oh, we have capabilities where you can do parental controls, or we can do this, or you can set limits." There's always ways around it. And if there was a true way, if you really did care, you would not also at the same time thinking and leading parents to think that they had their phone under control, and on the back end you're overriding their parental decisions that they made and getting the kid to opt out. I don't know what kid would want to be monitored all the time.
right. Right. It almost, I'll make the analogy to cigarettes and tobacco. You've got to be 21 to buy a pack of cigarettes. Here you have, they're opting you out at age 13. Now, lung cancer, emphysema, heart disease, those are all horrible things. It takes years to develop them. Going back to your timeline, now they have a product that every kid wants, that they market to kids with no warning labels, no parental consent, and not years to develop heart disease or lung cancer, 19 hours. And you're looking at a suicide invoked by criminal activity, into your word, murder, which it is. At that point, a young person whose brain isn't fully developed, that doesn't happen until about age 25, who's been victimized and vulnerable and taken advantage. So I want to get to what I think really is the positives. Your work. Now you set up a foundation. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, our foundation is pretty much for the betterment of children. They're our number one target audience. We try to get into schools and speak to kids. They'll fill up the gymnasium or the auditorium, and we tell them about, mainly our story and how it affects them. And we try to give them all the any situation. We say, hey, we pull them up. What would you do in this situation? How do you feel? What do you think? We just pick their brains. And then we explain to them how any of them could be a victim, and we give them certain situations where they could be, like our son. We tell our story, and we try to make the kids feel like they are our son. So just giving them that connection makes them really think like, oh my goodness, I know this could have been me. And after we're done with our presentation, they'll come up and tell us. They're like, I'm glad you were here, and this is what I've been through, or this is what my friend been through. And everyone has a story. It might not be the same as the next person's, but everyone has a story that's unique to them, and they're all the same some kind of way. And we just try to make sure that we make it to where they understand they're special, they're needed, we want them here, they have a future. It's bright.
Absolutely.
This isn't the end of the road, no matter what you've done. We just try to give words of encouragement and all those other things that kids need.
Now, when you said they all have a story, tell us a little bit. Have they? I'm guessing not everyone in a school assembly has been the victim of sextortion.
No.
I'm guessing. Are they surprised, not surprised to talk about it?
So when we talk about sextortion in our presentations, we also, tell the kids, don't let anybody touch you, bully you, force you into doing things, talk about you certain way. We talk about a range of different things. So when I said that everyone has a story, pretty much every kid and around the world actually has been bullied in some type of way.
Absolutely.
A lot of people have been in fist fights. A lot of people, have problems with just truancy from school. Everybody has some story to them. Even the most privileged of people still go through some kind of heartbreak or heartache at some time. And we just try to let them know that everybody is unique. So their story is their story. Now, they might have a similar story like their best friend or their cousin or, the person down the street that they barely know. Everyone has a story, but every story doesn't have to have a bad ending to it.
Right.
And we provide resources. So I don't know if you can see, but we actually have a tip card here.
Okay.
And every single kid gets a tip card. And on that tip card, it does give them information on if they were ever a sextortion victim. But, and Paul, the recent study is every 1 out of 17 youth, so anyone under 18, has been a victim of sextortion. And so we want to make sure that we put that in front of them, but we also give them resources where they have 988. So if they're ever thinking about harming themselves, we want to make sure that they have that resource. I don't care. You don't do it. You call 988, text them, whatever you can, but you need to be here. We also have the actual website and phone number to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, where they can make a report on their own. We tell them that because the main reason why we make sure that each and every student has that is because James' last Google search, he was trying to find those resources. He did not come to us. He did not come to go to a coach. He did not go to his best friends. I have plenty of brothers and sisters. Tim has a sister. We are a loving family. He did not go to none of us for help. And we know why. We know that sexually assaulted victims, less than 30% of them actually speak up and say something. We also know that that's the average statistic. It's not adding in a person of color. It's not adding in a man. It's not adding in a lot of other scenarios that can lower that percentage.
Right.
So we, like you, want to make sure that we prevent the bad from happening. And so we make sure that we give kids the resources because James never went to anyone. So now we have to treat your kids the same way.
Right. For those who could not see or are listening, the tip card is that you held up is, pocket size. You can keep it with you. And the phone number 988 is the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. Anyone who, if it's even just slightly in your mind, the phone call is free. You're not going to be judged. They're not going to track you down. It's going to be kept confidential. They can point you in the direction of help that you need. And sometimes you just need to talk to someone for a few moments, and just talking to someone and hearing, hey, it's going to be okay. There are people around you who love you, who want to help you, who will help you. And, it's one thing as I talk to more and more parents like yourselves who faced a tragedy. Most of the time, it's the kinds of things that teenagers face day in and day out that can be a trigger. It's a boyfriend, girlfriend breakup. It's, a rejection, not getting into the school they wanted to. There's so many things. Kids get teased, bullied on a day-by-day basis. And, you could say, well, the teenager did something wrong. Well, we're human beings. We all do something wrong. And doing something wrong does not mean you should be the victim of a crime. And that's where we need to make sure we build in the safeguards. One of those safeguards is the public education that you are doing. I am. So what's the reaction you get? Do the schools ask for you to come in? Do you call schools? Do they say, oh no, not our kids?
Oh no. And actually, we're smiling because our biggest advocates are the kids. I cannot tell you how many times a school calls us and says, hey, we want you to come in because one of our students heard you speak somewhere else and said we could have you here. I mean, it's truly amazing. The kids love us, and we love them. We tell them all the time, they are our kids now, and every parent has to share them with us. But we have that. And when we first started, there was some pushback. We're talking about suicide, and they always say suicide contagion. And I'm like, what is this suicide contagion? I said, we need to address these situations instead of running from them to make sure that our kids have the resources they need. And we just kept at it. It wasn't hard, so to say, because people welcomed us in the way that we did it. We always speak about James. We always tell James' story. But like Tim had stated earlier, we incorporate the children. We listen to them. We allow them to ask us all the questions. It can be, has the perpetrators gotten captured, like you asked, or what are our dogs' names? We allow them to have a voice in the learning process while we are speaking to them. And then we leave them with resources. And the parents, they thank us. One parent actually said about a week ago how we spoke to her child, and they now have consistent dinner conversations that we started, and they still have it to this day. And I'll be forever grateful for that. We cannot get James back. We cannot get him back. And although I want him back, we want him here. We want him to raid our cabinets at midnight for snacks. We want that. But since we cannot have that, the next best thing are your kids, and making sure that they're here, making sure that they are aware of the people who are targeting them. And they know, even if they make a mistake, because we all make mistakes, we still have your back 100%.
Absolutely. And I think for a teenager, puts a lot of expectations on themselves, what their parents think of them, what their friends think of them, what their teachers think of them, what the coaches and, other people who they interact with in their life, what they think of them. And a lot of times the expectations they put on themselves are higher than sometimes what any human being can live up to. And, I tell my own kids, be a kid. It's okay. And, and sometimes adults need to sometimes act like kids more and life will be better. Are you, when you talk to kids and when you go out, are you getting some of that? Or are they, it sounds like they're really opening up to you.
So when we talk to kids, a lot of times I do tell them, I say, hey, you're young. You have one job. That's to be a kid. You're supposed to go to school, get decent grades, not cause much problems, just be yourself. I tell them, have fun. And I explained to them, like how you brought up their frontal lobe not being developed to their mid to late 20s. I tell them that. I say, you guys are intelligent, but with all that intelligence, you're still missing wisdom, which doesn't come for a number of years past where you are now. You have to get to that point and then be able to reflect backwards and go forward. And they actually do understand and get that, because when we're done, they come up, they hug us, they tell us thank you. And it's like a switch goes off in their heads. Then they go home and they talk to their parents. And that's how conversations get started. And for us to know this, because the parents and the kids tell us, it puts smiles on our faces.
And they do open up to us. Because we don't mind. Like, we have 2 rules. When we start, we say it's a non-judgment zone.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole hour that we have your kids, we are not judging. We are having a true, transparent conversation, and we're going to be vulnerable with you. And I think that allows them to open up, because we're not here to be, you should have did this, or you don't do this. We don't preach taking away, because when you take away, all they are going to do is hide it. And then you run a higher risk. We work with India, a lot of people in
the country of India.
The country of India. And
Mm-hmm.
if you look, a lot of their, like, TikTok is banned. A lot of the social media apps are banned. But our kids are so smart. They know how to bounce off of VPNs to get what they need. And so when they actually do something where they actually need help, but they know that it's illegal, the suicide rate is through the roof in India, and it's because of that. So they're even trying to overcome those situations. So we don't recommend that. Within reason. If we had James and we found out and we had the privilege to correct James, we would have taken his phone. And we even tell our kids that as well when we speak to them. Because they ask, well, what would you have done? We would have taken James' phone. And it's for a number of things. It's for him to be able to allow himself to get through what he did, correct that, but also not give the murderers an opportunity to continuously add more harm to him as well. And so it's a lot of things. I mean, we have to we reflect and we think, okay, well, what we would have done or what we wouldn't have done. But those are the things there. So we actually recommend communication versus taking away everything.
And I think if you talk to child psychology experts and child development experts, one of the things you hear over and over again, in one of the things that we are very careful, because we put out a tremendous amount of public information aimed at young people, you have to value them. If you tell them don't do something, you open up their curiosity as to, oh, why not? And telling them no doesn't work. The act of encouraging them, as you say, you're very intelligent. You got some growing up to do, but you're very intelligent. And, I think teenagers universally want to hear they're smart, and they want to learn how to get good judgment. Now, good judgment in a crisis situation that's unfolding over just 19 hours, less than a day, you don't have much time. And I think part of it is, there are a lot of calls. I think Meta is spending millions, if not more, on advertising, saying that they want to have parental controls or parental approval on their app. And they're saying, well, let's pass a law and make that the standard. Well, first of all, if Meta wanted to do that, they could do that tomorrow. They don't need a law.
Correct.
And number two, it puts the quality of their product in the hands of parents, which makes no sense. We are not electrical engineers from MIT designing high technology. It's not our job. That's their job. They hire the best and brightest programmers they can find to make these products. Tell us a little bit about, where do you see parental responsibility beginning, and where do you see the corporate responsibility stepping in?
So I have to add on to what you were saying, because I didn't see where Metaverse was actually speaking about creating a law, but I think is really interesting how they're saying that when within 6 months of James passing away, Tim and myself had backed the Ohio State Lieutenant Governor at the time, John Husted, and we actually had a law, and it was called the Social Media Parental Act law. It did exactly what you described. It anytime there was an app that was downloaded on the phone by a minor under 16, that they would automatically need parental consent, which did two things. The parent would need to give consent, but they will also need to give direct access to the application from the parent without using like a ghost name. Passed unanimously in Ohio when it was time to take effect in January of 2024. We got sued by NetChoice, and NetChoice actually represents Metaverse.
For those who are not familiar, NetChoice is an organization set up by the large tech companies so they don't have to put their name out front.
Mm-hmm.
They use this NetChoice name so it sounds nicer.
But they operate on their best interest.
But they operate, profit motive is still what drives it.
Yes. So I just find that interesting. But in regards to answering your question, it takes, I know this is an old saying. It's an old saying. It takes a village, and it truly does. I think that our tech companies need to meet the parents halfway. There is no way that we could ever keep up with every single app that comes out. There is always the capability of hiding things. There are always a capability of us just not knowing. Just like how Tim and we didn't know what sextortion was, to be able to help James get through what he was going through in his crisis mode. But we do have our tech companies that are a lot more educated in the social media world that can meet our parents halfway. So, for example, I feel like if you want to put parental controls on your iPhone, don't give the kids a capability to find a loophole in getting out of that parental control. You have anything, Tim?
That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
The people who control all these applications need to themselves, without having law come in and say, don't do this. They should just be able to say, would I want my kids to go through some of the things that my app does? If the answer is no, then they should put in some kind of parameters to keep those bad things from happening. It's really simple. Just put yourself in the shoes of someone else instead of thinking about how much money you're going to make. Because that's all it is at the end of the day, is how much money am I going to make, no matter if it ruins this person's life or not.
And they're going to get money regardless. I don't understand the whole thing. You're going to get money regardless. So how about we put our kids first? Because they put their kids first.
Absolutely.
The CEO of TikTok doesn't even allow his kids on TikTok.
I was about to say, a lot of the CEOs don't let their kids use the own apps that they make.
Yeah.
So there's something that has struck me in this time that we've been spending together, and For those who are just listening, you can't see it, but I'll try to explain it. Tim and Tamia have these smiles that just resonate joy. They've lived this tragedy, but yet I think the work that you're doing brings joy, and they see that joy, and they're sitting under a poster that says love overflows and joy never ends. And I think it is just really fitting for the two of you because you really embody that. And I thank you for being with us, and we'll think of some creative ways to keep a little pressure on the companies like Meta and others out there and make this world better and safer. Thank you for joining us on True Crime Prevention. For those out there, don't forget to click like and subscribe because we're going to have a lot more episodes like this where we have just great people. And I just cannot thank you enough and commend you enough for the work that you just keep doing. And I thank you.
Thank you for having us. We appreciate it.
These are definitely two people who know how to take a bite out of crime. Thank you for being with us. Again, I'm Paul DelPonte. Thank you for joining True Crime Prevention.
That's an easy way to take a bite out of crime.